Welcome to the Runway, where we cover current events in crypto, Web3, and tech. It's Wednesday, January 17th. Let's take off. All right. Bitcoin mining stocks tumble after the cryptocurrency briefly touches 49,000. Investors took profits after the price of Bitcoin briefly spiked above 49,000 for the first time since December 2021. Miner revenue has fallen in recent weeks as Bitcoin transaction fees eased, according to data from CryptoQuant. Some investors may be positioning for the upcoming Bitcoin halving, when the mining reward for mining Bitcoin and mining companies' revenue will be cut in half. Full disclosure here, I do own mining stocks, Bitcoin mining stocks. Bernstein says, buy the dip in Bitcoin mining stocks ahead of BTC price inflection. The broker says it outperform rated mining stocks, Riot and CleanSpark. Bitcoin mining stocks have underperformed in recent weeks, but any weakness in the near term represents a potential buying opportunity, broker Bernstein said in a research report on Monday. The mining stocks are facing two headwinds following the approval of spot Bitcoin exchange-traded funds. First is lower investor appetite to use them as a proxy, and second is a weaker Bitcoin price, resulting in further underperformance, the report said. The Valkyrie Bitcoin Miners ETF, WGMI, which invests in publicly traded Bitcoin mining stocks, fell nearly 38% this year, while the Bitcoin price and broader equity markets were more or less flat. However, this underperformance might provide a window for investors looking for an opportunity to buy into mining stocks. Just like Bitcoin, the next 2 months offer a dip buying opportunity in Bitcoin miners, as the stocks will offer higher beta trade to the next Bitcoin price inflection. Analysts Gautam Chuhugani and Mahika Sapra wrote, there may be a further temporary weakness in Bitcoin with a potential short-term bottom in the 38 to 42K range for the world's largest cryptocurrency, the report said. Still, investors should be structurally long ahead of the next halving event expected in April. In a separate note on Wednesday, Bernstein reiterated its bullish call on the miners. The broker recommends achieving Bitcoin exposure via Bitcoin miners that offer a higher beta than Bitcoin-driven beta expansion and market multiple growth into the bull cycle. What's my take on this? Let's see here. Owning Bitcoin mining stocks gives you a way to sort of diversify your exposure into the ecosystem because not only are you now owning just Bitcoin itself, but you're owning the miners who sort of produce the asset, right? And they have tons of ASICs that have a market value. They have these machines. And when the market goes up, these machines they're worth more, they're priced higher, they're basically priced in their future cash flows, and they're producing Bitcoin, right? And a lot of these miners are holding Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So you're sort of getting multiple levels of exposure. They own land, they own huge data centers, they own energy contracts, which in and of themselves could be very lucrative, right? Because in some situations, they're consuming huge amounts of energy. When there's emergencies, they may be compensated to sell that energy back to the grid, essentially, right? To not consume that energy, to curtail, to do different things. So as an asset class, I love this aspect of Bitcoin where you can sort of own the production, and there's real world assets involved as well in Bitcoin, right? Head on to our next story. Winklevoss crypto exchange Gemini gets nod to launch in France amid clash with US regulators. So this is a common theme I think we've seen is companies that are involved in Web3 expanding outside the borders, attracting talent outside of the US and, creating jobs and expanding outside of our shores, right? And it's kind of sad to see, right? Gemini, which was founded by twins Tyler and Cameron Winklevoss, was approved as a virtual asset service provider or VASP by the French AMF watchdog, the company told CNBC exclusively. The firm said it will roll out its products to retail and institutional clients in France in the coming weeks as it completes final preparations to open its whole platform up to French users. It comes as major US crypto companies are turning to the European Union to expand their operations, driven in large part by a regulatory crackdown from US regulators. Very disappointing. Just a common theme we've sort of seen over the last, 4 years here in America, where we're sort of pushing out the innovation and it's not, you're not killing the innovation. It's just, like water, put a rock in the ocean, it's going to flow around you. It's going to go away from you, but it's not going away. Right. So same analogy here, which brings us to our next article. Coinbase SEC lock horns in US court over crypto securities, which kind of follows up on this whole thing. Coinbase was already doing a lot of business outside of the US and, expanding a lot of their operations there. So there's a lot of legal fare, a lot of wasted taxpayer dollars going into this, the SEC wasting taxpayer money. They've lost in court over and over again. They're being unrealistic, they're being antagonistic, they're being biased, and they are being arbitrary and capricious with the ETF denial at first. Such a waste of time and energy and effort that could be going towards giving more people access to these products, bringing more business and more capital and more money here, right? Which is really what the SEC's mandates are, facilitate capital formation. They're just doing the opposite, right? They're forcing capital away. And it's very authoritarian, it's very, Orwellian, and it's very anti-American. IRS says it won't enforce 10K crypto crypto tax rule for now. The tax law would require business-related crypto transactions over 10,000 to be reported like cash, but it's not quite ready yet. Weeks after confusion and anger spread across the crypto sphere over concerns that a new law could send Americans to jail for failing to immediately report crypto transactions over $10,000, the IRS has clarified that the measure is not currently being enforced and won't be for some time. Businesses do not have to report the receipt of digital assets the same way as they must report the receipt of cash until Treasury and IRS issue regulations. The IRS and the Treasury Department said in a joint statement on Tuesday, this particular provision requires Treasury and the IRS to issue regulations before it goes into effect. Oh, I mean, it's kind of like they just get another source of power they can sort of just put in their back pocket to pull out whenever they feel like, right? This administrative state is just growing and growing. It's like when they want to get you, they can just get you. The IRS tax code is like, it's longer than 7 Bibles. There's so many different regulations and rules and exemptions and stuff. It's becoming ridiculous, right? And this is just another example of that. They're not even prepared. They don't even really fully understand a lot of this stuff. And no reasonable person can really understand all of the stuff that's happening. I send all the information over to the tax people and, I hope they understand all that stuff because I'm signing these documents and this tax code, this 50 pages of tax documents. And it's, what is going on here? It's impossible to even understand what's going on, so you just hope that they do things the right way, right? They do their jobs. But it's getting harder and harder, right? And the more rules, and it almost becomes this tyranny. There's so many rules and laws and regulations that you can't even keep up with it anymore. It's just overwhelming. And it's really antithetical to what America was founded on. But let's move on. Core Scientific says reorganization plan is confirmed by bankruptcy court. Crypto mining firm Core Scientific is ready to emerge from bankruptcy and relist on NASDAQ, the mining firm said Tuesday. So good to see that Core Scientific worked it out for its investors. They got sort of caught with their tail between their legs in the last sort of market cycle, where they maybe purchased a lot of stuff, equipment at the peak of the market, right? Because we talked about recently about miners and stuff like that. And when the price of Bitcoin goes up, so do the miners, because the miners, are priced sort of in their future cash flow, right? So a lot of these, companies that hadn't been around very long, and some of these public companies that went under, they just didn't really know what they were doing, and they sort of made bad decisions, and they took out loans at the wrong time, kind of like what happened with the housing crisis, where people took out loans at the peak of the market, for a lot of these houses, and they were so overpriced that it didn't make sense. And when their actual equity came down so much, a lot of them were underwater, right? And a lot of people couldn't afford the loans to begin with. And again, this is a newer market and it takes time to develop, right? There's going to be trials and tribulations, and the people that are underwriting the loans have to learn about it. They have to educate themselves, and they have to learn how to operate in this industry, right? Because this industry is only going to grow and it's only going to get bigger, which brings us to our next story. I thought this was quite interesting. Decoding the Digital Gold Rush, Software Solutions for Crypto Mining Management by Denis Slabakov. And if you click this name, this is the only story this person has ever written, when in actuality, this is just an AI agent. And if we take a look at the story, it very quickly doesn't really make sense. The crypto mining sector is evolving significantly as part of the global economy's digital shift. This shift involves handling large data volumes and embracing new mining management technologies. This piece examines how new technologies and software have significantly changed crypto mining, making it more specialized and competitive. It will focus on how the new age software solutions for crypto mining management are improving operational efficiency and profitability. Evolution of crypto mining software, right? Around 2009, in the early days of Bitcoin, mining was relatively simple and used central processing units on regular computers. This phase was marked by accessibility, as almost anyone with a computer could start mining. As Bitcoin gained popularity, the demand for more efficient mining led to the adoption of graphics processing units, GPUs, around 2010 and 2013. Originally designed for gaming, GPUs were found to be more effective at processing the complex calculations required for mining cryptos. This marked a shift towards more specialized equipment, moving away from the simplicity of CPU mining. Then it kind of goes here, which has further led to the development of application-specific integrated circuits, ASICs. So this really has nothing to do with software. This has to do with hardware, right? So whoever wrote this article, whatever AI or ChatGPT, if it wrote this, it's not really making sense, right? It doesn't really know what it's talking about. This image here is an example of a generated using, Stable Diffusion or DALL-E, probably DALL-E. Evolution of crypto mining, it spells mining incorrectly. I mean, if you look down here, none of the words are actually accurate. shows CPU, GPU, Asuzu, none of this really makes sense. Cloud mining, I don't know what it's talking about here. But this article was probably generated by ChatGPT. So this is an example. There's this concept called Gelman and the amnesia effect. This is the Gelman effect, also called the Gelman amnesia effect. It describes the phenomenon of an expert believing news articles on topics outside of their field of expertise, even after acknowledging that articles written in the same publication that are within the expert's field of expertise are error-ridden and full of misunderstanding. The term was coined by author and film producer Michael Crichton. He explains the irony of the term, saying it came about because I once discussed it with Murray Gelman, and by dropping a famous name, I imply greater importance to myself and to the effect than it would otherwise have, and describes the term in his talk, Why Speculate, in which he says, briefly stated, the Gelman amnesia effect is as follows. You open the newspaper to an article on some subject you know well. In Murray's case, physics. In mine, show business. You read the article and see the journalist has absolutely no understanding of either the facts or the issues. Often the article is so wrong it actually presents the story backward, reversing cause and effect. I call these the wet streets cause rain stories. Paper's full of them. In any case, you read with exasperation or amusement the multiple errors in the story and then turn the page to a national or international affairs and read as if the rest of the newspaper was somehow more accurate about Palestine than the baloney you just read. You turn the page and forget what you know. So an interesting take here, and reading this just doesn't really make sense. There's a lot of errors and problems. This is an example, and just because it's mining and that's my sort of area of expertise, I'm sort of able to pick up on that, right? It says the evolution of crypto mining software, then it starts talking about hardware, which is the complete opposite of software, kind of all over the place, right? And obviously it wasn't written by a human, right? So we go to the next one, Quantum Computing Reshaping Cryptography, A Glimpse into the Future by Hillary. It says name Hillary, and it's a picture of a boy, it looks like. Human, pro teacher, artist, creative content creator, writer, editor. I'm guessing this is also another AI agent that's not real, that they're just using ChatGPT to push out content. The layout here is very much just like a ChatGPT article. So that's most likely, in my opinion, what's happening here. In the ever-evolving landscape of technology, quantum computing is emerging as a transformative force with potential to reshape the foundation of cryptography. As traditional cryptographic methods face the risk of becoming obsolete in the face of quantum advancements, understanding the implications of this revolutionary technology on cryptography becomes crucial. In this article, we will explore how quantum computing is influencing and reshaping the landscape of cryptography. So just repeating the same thing over and over again and saying it in different ways. This is definitely just a ChatGPT generated article. So wish they would just sort of say that it's an AI, right? Like we put out some AI content on our blog where we put together some news articles through one of our companies, and we put by AI, right? So by Al Engel, we make up a name and it's AI, right? And you can just click on it and see that, hey, this is, we're using AI, tools to help generate and to help curate and help do things, right? So obviously it's edited still. We look into it and stuff, but just be honest about it, I guess is the way to put it. You also don't want to be putting out, low quality content. Next up, after huge investments, companies need to make bank on generative AI. So just kind of what we're talking about, right? And again, these things are tools, right? They're tools to use, but they are not a replacement for doing the full job just yet, right? They can help you augment things, but you shouldn't just be saying, hey, write an article, do this. It's not going to give you the best quality, right? It might give you some information, right? But it's not going to be as good as an actual writer. If 2023 was the year companies poured money into generative AI, 2024 is the year they're hoping those investments start to pay off. From Microsoft and Google to Samsung and even Volkswagen and Mercedes, businesses are quickly monetizing their generative AI offerings as interest in the technology among consumers and enterprise customers remains red hot. So, a lot of the stuff's being built now, and what they're saying here is it's time to start cashing in. Next up, OpenAI, Sam Altman says human-level AI is coming, but will change world much less than we think. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman said artificial general intelligence, or AGI, could be developed in the reasonably close-ish future, whatever that means. Reasonably close-ish. AGI is a term used to refer to a form of artificial intelligence that can complete tasks to the same level or step above humans. Altman said AI isn't yet replacing jobs at the scale that many economists fear, and that it's already becoming an incredible tool for productivity. So here he says, it will change the world much less than we all think, and it will change jobs much less than we all think, Altman said at a conversation organized by Bloomberg at the WEF Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Like I just talked about previously, it's still a tool, right? So it's not going to fully replace a human. You use it as a tool to sort of augment your workflow, right? If you have ideas or thoughts, you can say, hey, these are my ideas. Can you write it in can you write it in a longer paragraph, and can you make it in this tone, a happy tone or a sad tone or whatever it may be, right? So it's a tool that can sort of augment your workflow. But when you sort of say, hey, just do it, just go write an article about this, what you get is sort of this gobbledygook here where it's not really putting anything actually substantive together in a lot of ways. There's bits and pieces in there that, hey, this is, yes, it transitioned from CPUs to GPUs, but here we're talking about software. So why are you talking about hardware, right? So it's not ready for prime time on that front. All right, let's move on to some hot and spicy takes on X. Just in, 1.5 trillion spot Bitcoin ETF issuer Franklin Templeton says crypto is improving how we interact with each other financially, just as the internet did with information. Yes, could not agree more. And if you guys see these little tags here from my profile, it's because I am telling my team, hey, this is an interesting post and let's talk about it on our podcast. Next up, and I think this is quite important, Rep. Jim Jordan says here, we now know the federal government flagged terms like MAGA and Trump to financial institutions if Americans completed transactions using those terms. What was also flagged? If you bought a religious text like a Bible or shopped at Bass Pro Shop. So this is sort of this unconstitutional sort of stuff that's already starting to happen. Totally inappropriate, unconstitutional behavior by this sort of shadowy, unelected, sort of forever swamp of Washington here. The Committee on the Judiciary and Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government are conducting oversight of federal law enforcement's receipt of information about American citizens without legal process and its engagement with the private sector. Based upon documents obtained by the Committee and Select Subcommittee, we believe that you, as the former director of the Office of Stakeholder Integration and Engagement in the Strategic Operations Division of the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, possess information necessary for our oversight. We ask that you appear for a transcribed interview. The committee and select subcommittee have obtained documents indicating that following January 6, 2021, FinCEN distributed materials to financial institutions that, among other things, outline the typologies of various persons of interest and provide financial institutions with suggested search terms and merchant category codes for identifying transactions on behalf of federal law enforcement. These materials include a document recommending the use of generic terms like Trump and MAGA to search Zelle payment messages, as well as a prior FinCEN analysis of lone actors/homegrown violent extremism indicators. According to this analysis, FinCEN warned financial institutions of extremism indicators that include transportation charges such as bus tickets, rental cars, or plane tickets for travel to areas with no apparent purpose, or the purchase of books, including religious texts, and subscriptions to other media containing extremist views. In other words, FinCEN urged large financial institutions to comb through the private transactions of their customers for suspicious charges on the basis of protected political and religious expression. So this is cut and dry, pure violation of people's Fourth Amendment rights, of the Constitution, of the First Amendment. It's just totally unacceptable behavior that's occurring, right? So we sort of saw what happened in Canada with the truckers, right, where they were protesting, and the government all of a sudden just said, hey, you're a terrorist now, and we're gonna basically wipe you out of existence, right? If we don't like what you're doing, we know we have laws to stop people from parking a truck in the road, right? We can get that truck towed or whatever, but we're gonna go above the law, right? We don't need to listen to the law anymore. Now you are a terrorist, so now we have the right to sort of extrajudicially abuse our power, and now we can just go and tell the bank to wipe your account out, right? So the reason I bring all this up is because this has happened, and this is a very slippery slope, and people don't realize, right? Is your money really your money, right? Are you really have any privacy, right? This is just sort of the beginning of this type of stuff, right? And this is really why Bitcoin is this beautiful tool that sort of prevents this, right? It protects your privacy, it protects your right, your freedom, and your Fourth Amendment rights. It's this digital sovereignty that you truly have, this custody that nobody can take from you. Just kind of wanted to briefly touch on that. Next up, JP Morgan CEO calls Bitcoin shit and says that he will never talk about it again. Pure capitulation. It's about a 2.5 minute little clip here. I went through and watched it, and at the end of the clip, I went in thinking, hey, this guy's a clown. Obviously we don't agree on this issue, but what I did gain some positive from this, and what I did gain at the very end was what he said is like, look, like to me this is a pet rock, but at the end of the day, but in this country, people have the right to do and purchase and buy what they want, right? So I did have respect for him, to Jamie Dimon, for saying that, for his quote there. So, I said, you know what? Yeah, you're offering the product and people can make their own decision. The perfect response take to that, which we'll follow up with here, was Michael Saylor. I just think he just knocked it out of the park, right? So, and this just touches on kind of what we were talking about. He says, if you encounter a strange new asset, a pet rock, circulating on a blockchain that does nothing, other than allow people to own something they can trade among themselves without fear of debasement or theft, you have just discovered digital money. #Bitcoin. Someone under here says, Julian says, the fact that Bitcoin makes Jamie Dimon so mad is actually my favorite use case. Came for the pet rock, stayed for the soundest money. Love that. Jamie Dimon gets Bitcoin without realizing that he gets Bitcoin. I love that. Some good spicy takes. This made me laugh too. It's only 20 seconds, so we'll play this. He said the quiet part out loud, Bitcoin. So,
are U.S. Treasury bonds still safe to invest in?
Very much so. I think this is not an issue of credit rating. The United States can pay any debt it has because we can always print money to do that. So there is zero probability of default.
That makes me laugh. We can always, this guy's face. The guy on the right was thinking, oh shit, he just said that. You can always print more money until you can't, right? You know, Zimbabwe could always print more money. Venezuela could always print more money. They could always just print more money until people get fed up with having their purchasing power stolen from them and debased. There is a breaking point for that. And you can only steal from people for so long. You can only abuse people for so long, right? Look at all this soon to be worthless paper, Bitcoin USD, right? So I don't know if this is real or a movie set or what, but fiat is printed out of thin air ad infinitum. Bitcoin requires proof of work to generate, and even then, there can never be more than 21 million. Choose wisely. All right, so Bitcoin has this idea of absolute scarcity, whereas you can see this, and there's a reason they don't print up a lot of this paper. A, because they actually have to go through the effort of printing the paper, and B, because, a lot of this money is counterfeit, and there are operations that can easily counterfeit this money. They're all over the world that do it. Is that counterfeit money? Give him a little retweet. Funny. Next up. Dennis Porter, part of the Satoshi Action Fund here. Breaking, a Democrat in Virginia has officially introduced a bill to defend your fundamental Bitcoin rights. Thank you at Salim VA Senate for taking the lead on protecting Bitcoin and digital assets in your state. Very cool to see this. Some good stuff from both sides of the aisle here. Here is Senator Saddam Aslan Salim. So congratulations, Senator, and I approve of your support. Thank you very much. Give him a follow. Bipartisan support is a beautiful thing. Dylan Allman, some quotes from Javier Milei's WEF appearance today. Free market capitalism and trade is the only way to end hunger and poverty across our planet. The empirical evidence is unquestionable. The state is financed through coercion, which is very true. It should never be forgotten that socialism is always and everywhere an impoverishing phenomenon that has failed in all countries where it has been tried out. Whenever you want to correct a supposed market failure inexorably as a result of not knowing what the market is, or as a result of having fallen in love with a failed model, you are opening up the doors to socialism and condemning people to poverty. Do not be intimidated either by the political class or by parasites who live off the state. Do not surrender to a political class that only wants to stay in power and retain its privileges. Do not surrender to the advance of the state. The state is not the solution. The state is the problem itself. This man is on a roll. I bet they did not like what he had to say at that WEF conference. There he is with his chainsaw. Gotta love it. The only thing he forgot to bring to Davos. Next up. Coinbase versus SEC court hearing live. So here's about a 5-hour recording of the court hearing with the Coinbase versus SEC. I posted it here in case you guys want to find the thread and actually have 5 hours to listen to the whole thing. But I'm going to cover a couple of little spicy comments from the judge, which I think will help you read some tea leaves of how this is going to go for the SEC. Hint, hint, just like all the other losses they've taken. So this is most likely another loss coming down the pipe for them. Another huge waste of taxpayer time, money, and resources. I'm not going to live tweet the entire at SEC.gov/Coinbase hearing, but Judge Phyla is on fire right out of the gate. She says to the SEC Gov lead lawyer, and I paraphrase, the DeFi people gave a really fine amicus brief explaining what staking is and what the wallet is used for, arguably better than how the commission explained it in its briefing. She also says the SEC Gov hasn't presented an opposing narrative for the legal foundations of Howey in its briefing. Another exchange, and this is Eleanor Cherrett, who looks like she's a Fox Business journalist, looks like she's based in the UK. She reports on crypto and regs, so I gave her a follow. Looks like she's got some good takes here. The SEC lawyer, these 12 or 13 tokens are computer code. Phyla interrupts, which is the judge. Sorry, but isn't that kind of what your friends at the back table referring to Coinbase are saying and wondering what we're doing here? The SEC lawyer says, yes, Your Honor, and I have a point and I'll get to it. Note, SEC lawyer cites Judge Rakoff's ruling in the Terra case that the ecosystem surrounding a token is what makes it a security. Judge Phyla also just referenced Bill Hinman in connection with the position that a token in and of itself is not a security. Wasn't it Mr. Hinman who said that? Someone from your shop that's no longer there? So she's, the judge is bringing up the previous SEC commissioner for saying, hey, The token themselves are not a security, which is what the SEC said previously, right? So she's basically calling them on their own words, right? Phyla, that's what the folks in the back table think when they are wondering why we are here. Russ UWGB says, SEC needs to lose this to finally send the message that the Howey test for crypto does not work, and we need 21st century regulations. The U.S. keeps falling further and further behind in this currency revolution with the current SEC in charge. Could not agree anymore. I think it's pretty clear how this is all going to play out now. Tokens themselves aren't securities. The end. My take on this is that a lot of people reference sort of this Orange Grove case about securities laws and the famous case. And, it wasn't the oranges themselves or the orange groves themselves that were the security. It was the financial contract that was made that was the security from people to profit. There was a signed contract that was there on those oranges, right? So this sort of follows up the previous loss the SEC took in the Ripple case, where they basically said that, Ripple in and of itself is not a security. It was the, this contract where you sold this Ripple to these institutional investors. That little small aspect of it was a security, but everything else was not a security, right? So I think that's the logic that's going to sort of play out here on this case. And I will leave you guys here with this final little meme here. Authoritarians watching Bitcoin bypass their control. That's all I got for you guys today. Stay safe, stay blessed, never stop learning, and keep an open mind. Thanks for listening.